Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's PerfectServe webinar, Getting the Most from PerfectServe. I am Heather Dorsett, Director of Marketing for PerfectServe, and I will be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, let's take a moment to review the webinar platform. In the middle of your browser, you will see a box containing today's slides. They will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To the right of the slides, you will also see a Q&A box where you can submit a question at any time, and your questions will be addressed during the Q&A portions that will be scattered throughout the presentation. So be sure if you have any questions at any time, go ahead and type them in, and they will queue up throughout our hour together. Finally, in the lower right-hand corner, you'll find a resource list containing a PDF of today's slides along with a few other helpful resources. In addition, today's webinar is being recorded for our friends and colleagues who are unable to join us. We will have a recording available after today's webinar. As an audience member, you are in listen-only mode, so please do make use of that Q&A box to communicate with our speakers or with me today. And finally, at the end of the webinar, we ask that you will complete a short survey to tell us what you thought of today's event. And once again, we are so excited you've chosen to join us for our first customer webinar of the year. We started these last year. We look forward to continuing the series throughout 2018. We know your time is super valuable, so we're glad that you chose to spend it with us today. So with us today are two of PerfectServe's leaders and our webinar hosts, Jeff Brown, Senior Vice President of Accounts, and Mary Hatcher, Vice President of Product Development. And alongside Jeff and Mary today is Amanda Bracken, our special guest, who will be doing a live demonstration for you later in the webinar. So let's get started. Jeff, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Heather. And good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeff. Thank you again for joining us today. It is hard to believe that this is year 2 of our customer webinar series. If you're a first-time participant, welcome. And if you've participated previously, we really thank you for joining again. We appreciate your continued support. A quick reminder that the ultimate goal of these webinars is to create a community of engaged users who can help us, provide feedback on what's working, what's not working, what perhaps is missing from the product, and help others by sharing how they're using PerfectServe in their environment. So with this in mind, please don't be shy with questions and feedback during our time today. So in terms of an agenda, we'll be covering a few topics. First, I'm going to give a quick review of our 2017 product deliverables. I'll then turn things over to Mary to give you an update on the upcoming product releases. And then we're excited to have Amanda with us to give you a demo of our new patient-centered care team capabilities. And as always, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. And like with previous webinars, we'll take questions after each discussion topic. So as Heather just said, recall you can ask questions via the Q&A box on your screen. So with that, let me take a few minutes to speak to our product accomplishments from 2017. So we're really excited about the progress we made last year. In addition to adding a number of great new customers, many of which whom are with us today, we really advanced our product, transitioning it from one that really had previously focused on physicians to one now that's a comprehensive platform that supports the entire care team, really across all care settings. And early feedback from customers that are using our new capabilities has really been positive. So with our time today, I'm not going to get into the details of every new feature we deployed in 2017. Instead, I'm just going to talk about some of the bigger enhancements. So first, we did a complete overhaul of our Practitioner web interface, which you see here. This is the interface primarily used by physicians, practice administrators, practice support staff. This overhaul came with a new look and feel, new branding, and really a brand new user experience for on-call scheduling, patient assignments, tracking, messaging, and a number of new capabilities. It's really just a lot easier to use than the previous version, and we hope those of you that are using it find that to be the case. Second, we overhauled our care team web interface. This is an interface primarily used by nurses and other hospital-based clinicians in the hospital setting. So like with the Practitioner web, this interface has a new look and feel. And with it now there's named users that log into it to enable and support the bidirectional messaging between the nurses and the physicians, something that our previous version could not do. So previously, the web interface for the hospital was a one-way communication. You send a communication out, but the doctors had to call back to get a hold of that nurse. Now they can text back. So you can see on this view, like the middle is the message threads that I have currently active, and then the right you can actually see the details of those message threads. So in the case you can see that the doctor replied that he'll recheck in 30 minutes. So this feature enabling this bidirectional messaging has really been a huge win for our clinicians, our users. And last, certainly not least, we deployed our new patient-centered care team collaboration capabilities, which Amanda will be demoing here in a few minutes. We're super excited about these new capabilities. Really, at a high level, there's two main improvements. So first, previously users had to start an interaction or a conversation with the name of the physician, a role, for example, hospitalist, a team, code stroke team, or maybe a name of a practice group. Now clinicians can start a conversation by selecting a patient. And when they do this, PerfectServe will automatically and dynamically pull the patient's care team in real time, and will also pull all the patient context into the message, as you can see here with this on the right with this mobile app view. So on the top is all the patient contacts that we're pulling through an ADT feed, and in the bottom is the care team members that are currently assigned to that patient, so that I can see, for example, who's the primary nurse assigned to that patient. And we do the dynamic assignments of the care team through interfaces with ADT, EMR, nurse call. In some roles, we're finding that just self-assignment is needed. The second thing is, whereas before users use PerfectServe to contact primarily physicians, users can now contact the other care team members, the primary nurse, as you see here, respiratory therapist, physical therapist, a case manager, for example. So with these new capabilities, we're really further advancing how clinicians communicate and collaborate on the platform about patients, and we're really supporting a host of new use cases. So again, we're super excited about the progress we made in 2017, and we're really excited about 2018. With these foundational pieces in place, we're now investing in additional value-added interfaces and much more, as Mary will share with you here over the next few minutes. So we're happy to answer any questions now about any of these new features that we deployed in 2017. And as always, for those of you that are associated with a hospital, you can always talk to your client outcomes executive about them. So we'll pause and take any questions.
Jeff, I do have one question, and we can hold this till a little bit later if we need to, but the question is, how long does it take to deploy the new patient-centered care team capabilities?
It's a good question, and it varies, depending obviously of the size of the hospital or health system. But if you're thinking about just a single site, the deployment of the new capabilities would be somewhere between probably 2 to 3 months, and it's not. I wouldn't consider it like an upgrade. It's more of just enabling new capabilities. But with the new capabilities, a lot of the upfront work with having named users, we need to figure out with the hospital or the health system, how we're going to provision all those new name users, and then going forward, how we're going to do that. So there's just some new work that needs to be done, and then there's obviously training associated with it, and there's some physician optimization as well to make sure that they're all enabled to reply back to messages securely. So I would say on average 2 to 3 months. Sometimes we can do it faster, sometimes it's a little longer.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that's all we have for now in the question box, so we can hand it over to Mary to start reviewing some of the functionality.
Okay, great. Thanks, Heather. Again, I'm glad that you all could join us today. We've got some really great product updates to share with you. As Jeff mentioned, strategic integrations continues to be a key focus for our product engineering folks. We're making very good progress in several of these, so much of my update today will be spent sharing with you the latest and greatest on these integrations. We also continue to expand deeper into the nursing space and are really focusing on mobility right now with the new Care Team iOS app, and then also further enhancing our alerts and alarms solution. So you'll get to see our latest work there as well. And then finally, we spent some time recently on a few enhancements for our doctors. This includes building out a new round-robin workflow as part of scheduling, as well as introducing a new app for the Apple Watch. So first, let's take a look at schedule integrations. Those of you who joined our webinar last September may recall that we were in the middle of development supporting integrations with two scheduling solutions. The first is QGenda, which I'm sure most or all of you have heard of. We've completed this integration and are currently in beta, and so far the results have been really great. The real value here of this integration is that it allows customers who are using QGenda to manage more complex schedules to continue leveraging that solution while still benefiting from PerfectServe's dynamic intelligent routing. The last thing anyone wants to do is enter their schedules into multiple systems. So with this integration, we can now sync that data over to a corresponding schedule within PerfectServe and then use that information when we send a communication. Feedback so far on this has been great, particularly for those groups who no longer have to duplicate the entry of their schedules in PerfectServe. The second scheduling solution with which we've integrated is AMION. So you're probably aware that AMION is most frequently used for large resident groups, but can certainly be used beyond that. This integration is also currently in beta, and the solution is very much the same as it is with QGenda. We're able to align an AMION schedule to a PerfectServe schedule and sync that data over so it can be used to determine the provider on call when we're sending a communication through. Again, the big benefit here is that it eliminates the need to enter your schedules in multiple systems. So as I mentioned, these integrations are currently in beta and are expected to be ready for general availability in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So while I'm talking about scheduling, I'm going to share with you another scheduling feature that's currently in development, which is round robin. So people may refer to this by different names. So just to make sure that you know what I'm talking about, it's a workflow that's most commonly used by large groups of physicians who are handling a high volume of new admissions or consults. And in these situations, you'll often find that instead of having a single physician responsible for all new admissions at any point in time, there are actually a few physicians responsible, perhaps 3, 4, or 5 of them. And when this is the case, a common way to divide these up is to rotate through the group of physicians that are currently responsible, giving the first admission to the first doctor on the list and the second admission to the next doctor, and so on, and then start back at the beginning of the list after each doctor's been contacted. So here you can see how this will look when viewing the schedule over the web. I'm looking at a group on-call schedule where they have a round-robin rotation from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., which is the current shift. And here you can see that there are four physicians rotating. There's an arrow pointing at the person who's up next to receive a communication. And you can also see to the left of their names the number of new admissions that they've received on this particular shift. And all of this happens automatically as we send communications to these physicians through PerfectServe. So it knows that when the next new admission comes in for this group, in this case that Dr. Dreiser is the physician on call, and it's automatically going to send it to him. And here is a similar view through the physician mobile app. The screen on the left shows that there's a rotation within the schedule, and when I select that rotation, I get the screen on the right. Here you can see the people who are currently in the rotation. You can change the order, remove and add physicians, as well as see who's up next. So really all the same capabilities that you have in the web. We are wrapping up development on this now, and we're expecting to be released and in beta by the end of the quarter. So back to integrations. The next integration update I have is the work we've done with Microsoft Skype for Business. With this capability, you'll be able to initiate a Skype video conference to another clinician from within PerfectServe. You can see here that the feature can be launched from the same screens within the mobile app where you can initiate a text message or a phone call. By selecting the Skype option from any of these screens, it will launch the Microsoft Skype for Business app on the device and automatically initiate a video conference call. So here you can imagine having a primary care physician in a room with a patient and being able to do a consult live with a specialist. It can speed the time to care, allowing the specialist to make important decisions without having to wait until the next time he or she is doing rounds. This, of course, leverages the power of PerfectServe's dynamic intelligent routing by bringing it in use through a real-time secure video solution. In this case, the integration does require that the client has Microsoft Skype for Business through Office 365, and of course would require that both the sender and the recipient of the communication has the Skype for Business app on their smartphone device. So if you're interested in using Skype for Business with PerfectServe, please reach out to your client outcomes executive and they'll help you get more information on getting started. The next big news I'll share with you is that we have developed a new app for the Apple Watch. So we've created the ability to view your PerfectServe messages on the Apple Watch. Now when you're notified that you have a new message, instead of having to pull out your phone to view it, you can simply tap on the notification on your watch and it will open up the app right there so you can view the whole message without having to pull it up on a different device. You'll also have the ability to reply to the message. So you can do that in a couple different ways. One is to use the microphone and using text-to-speech. The next is the scribble capability, which is native to the Apple Watch. And then the third is that you can actually build your own set of canned responses to use on the watch. You can see that there with the yes and no that are listed on the screen. Responses can be as long or as short as you want them to be. So this app is getting ready to go to beta, and we still have more space for beta users. So if you're an iPhone user with an Apple Watch and you currently use the PerfectServe Practitioner mobile app, or you know of any physicians who've been asking for this, let us know and we'll get you set up. We've had several physicians asking for this capability for a while, so we're really excited to get this one out there. Next is Care Team Mobility. We gained a lot of traction in 2017 with our Care Team mobile app. We've got a well-evolved Android app that runs on any Android device and has had additional optimization for the SpectraLink Pivot and the MC40. And our big news here is that we are wrapping up development of our Care Team iOS app. We're expecting to have the initial release of this out and ready for beta testing in March. We're expecting this to be a big win, as I know several customers have deployed iOS devices enterprise-wide to their Care Team staff. And I'm also aware of several others who want to have select members of their staff using the Care Team mobile app on their personal device. So this will open that up a little bit more. Really this just helps round out our mobility options, giving customers more choices. Like I said here, we'll do some beta testing starting in March, and I expect to have the app ready for wider distribution later in the second quarter. So along with rounding out the device options that we offer, we're also making steady progress on our alerts and alarms solution for Care Team. The end result of this development, The end result of this development is to have a comprehensive solution in which we'll deliver and manage the acknowledgement of alerts that originate from several different sources, including nurse call. These will be able to be delivered to any Care Team member that's using PerfectServe. Phase 1, which we've already released, includes the ability to receive an HL7 event, deliver it to a Care Team user, and send a push notification to alert that user of that message. In Phase 2, the big thing here is that we'll be adding the ability to accept or decline the alert, which you can see at the bottom of the screen on the right. It also supports notification escalation to that same device or to other devices, which will ensure fail-safe delivery of the alert. In this case, we're still seeking development and beta partners for this capability. So again, please let us know if you're interested in working with us on this. And then the final thing I'll share, which is going to be very brief because Amanda's going to do a live demo here in a moment, is all the great work that we've done on our patient-centered Care Team Access solution. And Jeff kind of spoke to this earlier, but throughout all of our webinars last year, I provided several updates on new capabilities that we were releasing to support this solution. And as Jeff described, here you're able to search for a patient, see the real-time dynamic care team, and initiate a communication to them. So I'm going to pause there so that I don't spoil any of the details of Amanda's demo. She'll show you several workflows so that you can really see the value that comes with this solution. And before that, I'll turn it over to Heather to see if anybody has questions.
Thanks, Mary. We do have a couple of questions. One is, is there a separate login to access QGenda? And in this particular case, I'm not sure if this organization has QGenda already, but there is a question around that. How does that access work?
Sure. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, the login to QGenda would be completely separate from the PerfectServe login. So it would be, something that you would get set up and signed up for through the QGenda that you would have, or I'm sorry, through the contract that you would have with QGenda. So that would be a separate login to view and manage those on-call schedules on their side. What we've developed is really just to take a QGenda schedule and align it to a PerfectServe schedule and sync that data over so that you don't have to go into the PerfectServe schedule to update it and manage it and keep it maintained on an ongoing basis.
Okay, so it does require then a separate agreement with QGenda for management of schedules.
It does, yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. We have another question. Let's see. What does it take to set up the schedule integrations? What does that process look like?
Okay, sure, good question. As with several things on PerfectServe, there's a little bit of a consultation process that's required up front, and that's really just to determine which of the QGenda schedules or which of the AMION schedules that you have, that you're currently using, which of those are actually used in your physician communication process so that we can identify those schedules that need to sync over to PerfectServe. In most cases, it's a subset of all the schedules that you may be using QGenda for. So from there, once you identify that and we align the schedules, the setup is actually really easy. There's just some key identifiers from QGenda that we need to obtain, and we have an easy way to do that. We configure them into your schedule, and that alone really sets up the sync process. From there, we do recommend doing some data validation with the sync in place for about a week or so, just to confirm that it's updating properly and that you're getting all of the results that you expect. And then once you go through that process and are able to confirm that, then you're really ready to plug that schedule into the communication workflow, and we configure that here on our end, and you're kind of up and running after that. So it's pretty easy as far as that setup goes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then one last question here regarding Skype. Can you talk about some of the use cases or how folks are using Skype via PerfectServe?
Sure. I'll give some examples. I think the being able to consult with another physician seems to really be the key scenario. We're working with a couple of folks at one of our hospitals who are using it to solve a workflow that they have around anesthesia consults. So they have one main hospital, and then they'll do surgeries at other satellite hospitals at other facilities. And, there's the anesthesia consult that's required up front before the surgery. And instead of having the anesthesiologist having to be there on site to do the consultation with the patient, they'll actually have another provider who's there with the patient, do the consult with the anesthesiologist. They're able to speak directly to the patient through that process. And it saves them some time because they're not having to be there on site at the other facility until the surgery begins. They're able to kind of, get that done from another facility or while they're in transit. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, that takes care of the questions that we have right now. So I think we're ready to transition to the demo with Amanda. So Amanda, are you ready to tee up?
Yes, so I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Okay. And Amanda, I am seeing your screen, so you are good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Heather. As you're aware, the current process for reaching providers or care team members involves selecting them by name or saying a phrase like hospitalist and you're directed to the correct person. For example, if I want to touch base with a hospitalist currently covering my patient, I could type hospitalist, select inpatient, and then type the last name or MRN of my patient, and I'll see that Dr. Roger Fielder is providing coverage. Patient-centered care team access allows us to initiate the communication by selecting a patient's name. I'm going to show you this functionality on 3 interfaces: the Care Team mobile application seen on the Android on the left, and the Practitioner application seen on the iPhone on the right. I'll also show this feature on the web application, as not everyone has engaged in a smartphone strategy for care team members. The Practitioner application on the right is used by physicians and other providers who use a BYOD device. The Care Team application was created for nurses and other shift-based care team members in mind who tend to use shared devices that they hand off during shift change, but can also be used on a BYOD device. I'll begin by showing you patient-centered care team access on the Care Team mobile application on the left. From the Care Team mobile application, I can choose patients. I'll enter the patient name. Here I'll type Mills, the last name of my patient. I'll then validate this is the intended patient based on the current census we're receiving via the ADT feed. And I'll see the patient's key demographics at the top, as well as the patient-centered care team listed below. Note that the care team can include both ambulatory and acute providers. Owen Hunt is listed as the primary care provider, while the remaining roles are centered on the acute care team. If I want to contact the hospitalist, I can choose Roger Fielder, type my message, and send. And then Roger Fielder is on the Practitioner app on the right on the iPhone. And once the notification comes through, I'll be able to launch that message directly from the notification. So here I'll click. And then he can reply, recheck in an hour, and send. Immediately on the Care Team app, I received the notification, and again, can just launch the message right there from the notification. From the Practitioner app, I can also go to the menu, choose Patients, contact Patient Care Team. By following the same process, entering the patient name, I choose the correct patient record, and I see the patient care team. As a physician, I can reach the correct nurse caring for my patient at any time, or I can collaborate with a consulting provider. I'll choose Wendy Adams with neurology. She's in a procedure and being covered by her PA. If I hit next, I'm prompted for the urgency, and if I choose urgent, I see the covering provider and can send a message. For those care team users who use a combination of the web tool and a basic phone to communicate, the same access exists from the web. Again, key patient information is listed at the top and the care team at the bottom. If I choose Wendy Adams, I'll see she's in a procedure just as Dr. Fielder did from his mobile application moments ago. Let's review how this dynamic care team is constructed. PerfectServe pulls together the care team via one or more sources of truth. For providers, this is commonly the EMR, which tells us admitting, attending, and consulting information. We're aware that many physician groups do not keep the EMR updated with current patient coverage from shift to shift. So dynamic, intelligent routing is behind the interaction to ensure you're directed to the correct provider at every moment in time, as we saw with Wendy Adams. Nursing might have a different source of truth, such as the nurse call system, that's updated each shift. Ancillary team members may not have an electronic source of truth, so PerfectServe has a built-in assignments interface that allows care team members in any role to assign themselves to locations, like units of rooms. By clicking on the Assignments tab in the menu, we're taken to this unit's rooms, beds, and current patients. In the top left, we can choose different roles to assign. Each role can have a different source of truth, and that source of truth can even differ by unit. So nursing in 4 West may manually make assignments, but in ICU, they reliably assign themselves in the nurse call system each shift. So we'll pull assignments from nurse call. Manual assignments are simple and can be done by the nurse, the secretary, or the charge nurse, depending on what works best in your current workflow. By clicking on the rooms or beds, and then the nurse or care team member and assign, I've made the new assignment. And I'll pass that back to Heather.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Okay, we do have a couple of questions in our Q&A box here. Thanks for that information. Is the functionality that you just reviewed available now?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I can take that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, but everything that was shown today, demoed today, is in our live environment. Nothing is future or just demo software. It's all live, and it's GA to be being used by our customers.
That's correct, Jeff.
Okay, great. We do have one other question, and this may be more for Mary. Will the Care Team mobile application be available in the App Store?
Okay, good question. I think I've had that question a lot, not necessarily in this forum, but people are definitely asking about that. So Care Team iOS, when we release that initially and it's in beta, it will not be in the App Store. But ultimately, when we're finished with that app and it's ready to go to general availability, it will be in the App Store. That's one of the kind of requirements around Apple and how their apps are distributed. Near that same time, our Android app, which we currently have customers using, which right now is only deployed through a special APK that has to be deployed individually. Around the same time that we put iOS in the App Store, we will also be putting the Android app in the App Store as well. So both of them ultimately will be available in the App Store, and I'd say that will happen sometime later this year.
Okay. Okay, this question may be for Mary or Amanda. Are the information fields customizable to the institution, such as instead of MRN, could we use FIN?
They are. Those fields really are specific to what we get from the ADT. So depending on what they're called there and what we get through each customer's ADT feed, it drives the discrete patient fields that we would end up showing in the app there.
Okay, great. Another question for you, Mary, that has come in. Is this system available for any EMR? Is it Epic compatible? And is there an extra cost or contract feature to that?
Okay, so I assume we're talking about the patient-centered care team. So do you agree, Heather, that that's what the question is about, is patient-centered care team?
I think so. I think so. It doesn't reference that, but I think that's correct, yes.
Okay. So for the most part, the different EMRs have different capabilities as far as getting patient data to us, or how assignments might be managed, and how well we're able to get assignments out of those systems. But we've actually been doing patient-centered routing on our physician platform for years, which has given us a lot of experience of how to get assignment data out of EMRs. And so, throughout the course of the last 5 years in doing that work, we've worked with nearly every EMR. In some cases, certain EMRs, the integration isn't as compatible as other EMRs. In those cases, we end up doing flat files in a lot of cases. So we'll take the ADT feed, the information, and actually send it to PerfectServe through a flat file, which ultimately the end result for the customer ends up looking and feeling the same. So it's just a matter of how we do the integration. But I would say, the general feeling going forward is you can assume that it works well with all EMRs, and then we just work out the integration details as we're working with customers.
Okay, great. And is there an extra cost for that feed?
There is an extra cost for the feed, and it goes along with the patient-centered care team access module as well. So there is an extra licensing fee required for that.
Yeah. This is Jeff. I'll just add that depending on the capability that you're trying to, or that you want to enable, there could be professional services fees to enable that, and then depending on your current licensing agreement with us, there could be a licensing change as well with fees. And I will add that with both, kind of just on the EMR topic, with both Epic and Cerner, we are working on a deeper interfaces with both those products, both those EMRs, that will hopefully be in the position to share more in the coming webinars.
Mm-hmm. And we've had several questions about specific accounts, Jeff. So what we'll do is reach out to you and all of the client account outcomes executives to address anything specifically for these accounts as well.
Great.
Okay, that wraps up our questions. So I think, unless there are any other straggling questions, I will let everyone know of a few items before we sign off today. So we'll maybe give everyone a few minutes back in their afternoon. So just as a thank you again to all of our speakers, Jeff and Mary, for the information that you provided today, and Amanda as well, special thank you to you as our special guest for conducting a live demonstration. That was extremely helpful. And for our audience, thank you. And just a quick reminder that you can access the resource list that is located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. A PDF of today's slides is there, along with a handful of other documents, and a reminder that we will be sharing a recording of this after today. And then finally, excuse me, we do have a couple of free educational webinars coming up that you might be interested in. Let's see, we have next week, next Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern, we have a great presentation coming up on preparing for disasters, protecting your data and maintaining communications in times of disaster. That's with Drex DeFord. He's well known in this industry. I think it's going to be a great presentation, so I encourage you to register for that. On March 27th, also at 2 p.m. Eastern, we have a webinar coming up with the advisory board around innovations in clinical technology and care delivery. That'll be a great presentation as well. We've partnered with the advisory board several times on webinars, and they always are really great content. And then go ahead and mark your calendars for May 8th. That's a Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We will be having our next customer webinar, Getting the Most from PerfectServe. So be sure and put that on your calendar. And to register for any of these, all you need to do is click on the link, the little icon that looks like a link at the bottom of your webinar platform, and you'll get sent to a registration page where you can sign up for those. And so that does conclude today's webinar. Special thanks to all of you, our PerfectServe community of users, for spending your valuable time with us today. Please do take a moment to complete our short survey and tell us how we did. Have a great afternoon.